I was gonna say this year's a leap year, and I'm just like, oh man, I was just thinking about today. I was just like, the last time it was a leap year, we did not at this time of the year, we did not know what the fuck was about to go down.
That's true.
I was thinking
And
about that a lot today.
I never even thought about it with the correlation with leap years. I know one thing we have been talking about is this year there'll be a total eclipse that'll be viewable. Like if we were to go visit Emily's parents,
Yeah,
we can view it.
yeah. I did know that, and 2017 there was was it a partial? I know in Alabama it was a partial eclipse.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was
Trying to
total
remember.
from somewhere, but it was not total from the U.S.
Well, I was
I
wondering if it was
think
total. I was wondering if it was total from. I think there was places in the U.S. in the northern hemisphere you could get. Um,
maybe, and I remember looking it up at one point, and it does seem like if you had traveled to like the Carolinas or something, somewhere in that area,
you are
or
correct.
further north.
Well, it depends on which side. Oh, son of a bitch. Depends on what side of the. It depends on what side of the earth. The actual the for the 2017 eclipse, it was if you were. I keep clicking on images to make them bigger, and they just take me to different links of the exact same size image. Um, it said the greatest portion of the eclipse was it was somewhere in Kentucky, just north and west of Nashville. So, but you were right. South Carolina, Greenville and Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, also got. They were in the path of totality. I remember watching. I wasn't watching it at the time, but there's. I got far along enough in the show Modern Family to see that there was an episode where they get a houseboat and they go. I guess they were off the coast of Oregon, which was in the path of totality, and they would have gotten a total eclipse. So
I went ahead and picked up a couple of solar filters for the cameras just in case, because they're inexpensive enough anyway, and you can use them for various other things, including or not limited to solar photography. But I haven't given them a shot or anything yet. But I picked them. I guess that's only one because I think both of my lenses use the same one. I have to go back and look at. I either ordered one or two, and it was still less than $50.
So it looks like Alabama will get 80%. Just the entire state of Alabama will have 80% coverage, and it looks like if you go pretty close to that same, it's a little bit west of where it was in Kentucky, but yeah, in 2017, but near the same spot in Kentucky, there's the path of the total eclipse, but it's like the pathway is diagonal to, or would run perpendicular to the one from 2017. But it goes like most of the state of Arkansas will have a total eclipse. Indiana, Ohio, etc.
It's I don't remember where I was looking, but apparently it's more rare than what recent history would make you believe as far as
It
full
is.
totality.
It is.
And I could have swore at some point in my lifetime I had seen a total eclipse, but apparently upon looking it up, I have not.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, it would have had to have been near totality, and I just thought it was a total eclipse.
So there's a. I'm trying to remember because like there's when I think annually the Earth blocks the moon. Maybe.
Probably.
No, I want to know. I'm searching. But it's, a good point is that it depends on where you are, because after 2024, there won't be the next total solar eclipse will be March of 2033, and it's a weird one where it's only gonna get You'll only see it if you're in Alaska. But this is the last one for us to see in the next 10 years.
Yeah. It just seems strange with, one 7 years ago. I guess on average every decade.
But see, it's not even, I don't even think it's that often. I just think that was,
just happens
not
to be
necessarily, it was happenstance.
Yeah.
So.
And I didn't go back and look up history and since record keeping began and try to piece together any kind of regularity to it. It was just one of those things that seemed like it was more frequent than it really is until further investigation over the past 30 years.
So in the past 150 years, there's been 15 total solar eclipses that affect the continental United States,
which would average to about every decade.
Yeah. So prior to 2017, it looks like 1979 was the last one.
Yeah, I remember seeing that because I thought it was odd that it was the same birth year.
Right. And then prior to that, it was 1970. Prior to that was 63, then 59. So there were a bunch that were close together, and then you were born, and they stopped.
Yeah, that seemed to have that effect on the sun, I guess.
Sometimes it's nice to keep the listener on his toe, like a ballerina. No, I've always enjoyed this. Exercise, and I heard recently a number of people do this, but naming the code names for macOS in order.
I would not be able to do so at this point.
I'm sure you could do some of them, like starting with 10.0.
See, I never really paid that much attention to the code names. That's the problem. I always paid attention to what it was officially released as.
I mean, but those were the code names. It was officially released as under their code names. I mean, I'm assuming all the big cat names were code names, and they just let them leak or something.
I don't think so.
Do you think they had other code names internally?
I think at least OS 10 did.
Well,
I would assume 10 and 10.1 at a minimum, but I think most of them did.
So I know that 10. There was a version of 10 that was called Rhapsody.
I remember hearing that.
And the macOS 9, macOS 8, they had the system, because I think it was 8 where they actually called them out as macOS, and I think it was 7. It was just System 7. But they had, they had other orchestral like one of them was Allegro. That's the only one I can actually, now that I think about it, that's the only one I can think of that had a composer. I don't know what the term. I don't know if some music terminology. But I remember Rhapsody was one. But I was thinking that all of the big cat names were the actual code names, and somehow they got out, or I don't know, but they became marketing names. And whereas there are no marketing names for iOS or iPadOS or tvOS or watchOS. Yeah, there was a developer release called Rhapsody, and then a public beta called Kodiak, which I guess was the bear.
Maybe.
Yeah, or an island, but it's not a California landmark.
Yeah, according to just doing a quick search, it looks like the only code names that anybody has compiled are the final released names.
Yeah, I thought they were code names. I mean, they sound like code names. I just assumed they turned them, for whatever reason, into marketing names.
This does say for OS 10 releases beginning with 10.11 why do they call and for macOS? Well, because they call it OS X before that. I see. Varieties of apples were used as internal code names.
What was reused as internal code names?
Varieties of apples.
Oh, interesting.
So like the developer previews and public betas, etc., have associated code names.
So I remember it was Mac OS from 10.0, and I'm trying to remember when they dropped the Mac part, and then they brought it back.
It was Mac OS through 10.7, and then it was OS 10 for 10.8 to 10.11. Yep.
And then when did they bring Mac OS, the Mac back?
Well, then it changed to Mac OS with 10.12, but they dropped the
10
X denominator, the Roman numeral. So it just became Mac OS 10.12 through 14.
There was a 10.15, wasn't there?
Yeah. Catalina.
Yeah. And Big Sur was the first one that they went up. They cranked it up to 11. So this exercise is ruined now.
Apparently, according to this, there have been code names for like tvOS versions and...
Yeah, I would expect so internally, but they never came out as...
yeah, those were just version
marketing
numbers.
names.
Yep.
And then I was gonna say I was pretty good at most of them. I got Yosemite. I knew Yosemite and El Capitan were together, and Sierra and High Sierra were together, but I had them flip flopped. And I completely and totally totally forgot about Mojave. Forgot that even existed. I don't even remember using Mojave or what its features were or anything. The only thing I can remember is some of the backgrounds.
Yeah, I didn't pay a lot of attention to the different code names when they started doing it after California landmarks. Like I recognize them when I see them, but correlating it to a version of the OS I used, it just didn't register anymore for me.
Well, part of it is that like it's hard. It's like, what's the point of remembering it for a year? Because the annual releases, and two, it's there. If you don't live on the West Coast, it's more. It's not esoteric, but it's more inside baseball, I suppose.
Or it just, at this point, it's a mature enough product that it doesn't really matter until there's something that's really game-changing again. And you could argue that they've done a lot, sure, and in the era of current iterations, there's certainly a number of improvements, but it's really the hardware that have driven the changes, not so much the software.
It's not even the Mac hardware that's driven the changes.
Yeah,
it's iPhone. It's keeping in parity with iPhone features.
I would say arguably like the Kanban style options in, is it Notes or Reminders? I got that. I don't even remember which one now. But some of the tweaks there are Mac specific.
No, I know, but there's a lot of feature sets are trying to keep, or a lot of the feature set is
well, it's definitely pushed by iOS.
Yeah.
And especially like the change to settings over the preference panes and everything. That's purely an iOS thing.
It's broken right now.
I don't like it.
It's not broken's not the right word. It is not as mature as it needs to be.
Yeah, that's a good way to
they'll get there. Like, I think they'll get there with it. It's just a little more difficult to work through right now. I think it's more difficult to work with than the last version of System Preferences was.
Yeah, definitely. And I do also recognize that part of that is trying to put it in a place that makes sense within this refined or different view. And so when you get used to doing something one way and you're trying to make it more seamless between different platforms, like I recognize it as this is also just somewhat of a learning curve for me on where to find some things or what it would be. But the problem is that Apple has not been good at providing feedback to the user when you're trying to figure out something, like whether
Yeah.
something's positive or negative or working.
Yeah. Well, I got to imagine that they've got plenty of users internally that have appropriate criticisms of that piece of software, because they're all Mac OS users themselves.
Yeah.
But I don't criticize it. It's like I can say that it's like not as it's harder to use than what left. I understand why what left. I understand why they replaced it. But where I have where I would where I direct my criticisms, the black hole that I direct my criticisms to would be disk utility, because now that's at this point it's a very it's a niche. Like even for myself, it's a niche application. But when I have to use it, it's not as good as the outgoing version of it. And so, but because I use it in a different way, I'd have more criticisms of it, because like I can think of how I'd want it to be instead of how it is. Whereas I'm not sure how I'd want system settings to be.
I would say I've found disk utility to have become more reliable when I quit trying to do anything other than the very basics with it, and just default to other tools for when I need to do something more than that.
I just use the command line now.
I mean, that's what I mean by other tools.
Well, what that tells me is that doing things with disks is pretty reliable. It just that UI is not. But at the same time, I also understand why. Well, I don't understand why some things have changed, but I understand something had to change about it because of the entire file system has changed. It's no longer HFS plus case sensitive. Anyway,
It's funny, I actually don't ever really use the case sensitive file systems.
Oh, I never did. I used whatever before APFS. It was HFS plus journaled, I think.
Yep.
I never used the case sensitive.
I tried it once or twice. I remember fairly early on when I discovered it. This would have been at some point when it was introduced to the OS, or made easily accessible, or who knows, like a long time ago. It's what I'm really just getting at. I remember trying it and creating problems for myself trying to use Adobe products, because Adobe products would not work with the case-sensitive file system at the time. And it was something stupid, like the directory that it was looking at shared a name with something else, but if it was case-sensitive, it wasn't the same directory, or I don't know. There was some strange thing, and then eventually, I think they put in a disclaimer where if it was case-sensitive, it wouldn't even install, or I don't know. It's been so long. I remember some application did that, where if it was case-sensitive, it would tell you either prior to the installation or toward the end, a big pop-up saying you may experience errors running this on a case-sensitive file system or something like that, like trying to let you know in advance.
Do you remember that? So, let's see, the first version of macOS I used, I think, was Jaguar. I don't think I had a copy. It was on a work computer. I went from 9.2 to Jaguar, because the company I worked for was like, they weren't buying copies of Mac OS. Whatever came with the computer is what you used, and unless there were some people that had, they were a file maker. They were using Apple computers to rely on FileMaker. And so whatever version of, there was, the server that had the FileMaker database on it, and there was the, whatever version of your computer that you had, it got a version of FileMaker that, we had a site license for, and it worked with whatever version was on this, on the server and so forth. So whatever you had is on your computer is what you got. So I think the first version of macOS I used was Jaguar, and and I believe that was the first one that was like, really successful. They got people interested in developing for macOS, to move away from the classic macOS and move to macOS 10. And it was the first one that was also, the hardware could support what was going on there. And but I remember the first computer I owned had Tiger, and I remember waiting for Leopard, because Leopard got delayed. I think it was 2.5 years between Tiger and Leopard, which seems kind of crazy these days. But 2005, it was 2007 when they released Leopard. Anyway, it was a long thing to say that at one point ZFS was a feature of Leopard, and they pulled it out.
I remember that. Yeah.
I was wondering if you'd remember that or not.
I wouldn't have thought about it without the discussion, but yeah, I remember thinking it would be interesting to see, and I don't remember even following why it got pulled.
I don't think they can make it work. I don't know, because they obviously never put it back in. They had to make their own file system, or they took the trouble of making their own file system.
Yeah, I might have to, now that I understand file systems significantly better than I used to, I might have to go back and look up that history just to see if there's anything interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some tidbit that I would not have paid attention to in the past, when it happened, that I would pick up on now.
9 to 5 Mac wrote an article about it in 2009. And it was for Snow Leopard, but I remember it was in Leopard, so I guess they were trying to, they pushed it to Snow Leopard. So, yeah, and this is like right after Snow Leopard released, because I was working for Apple. Snow Leopard was the first, it was the first OS that was Apple released when I was working at the Apple Store.
Kind of funny to think that Snow Leopard was still the one in use when I started working.
Snow Leopard was the best. It was so good. Like, I remember Leopard had some issues, but Snow Leopard just it was like upgrading to Lion was a little bit of a downgrade. But, I never had problems with it.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for seeing some people have problems, I don't know that I would have ever known.
Yeah, same. If I didn't have to work on people who did have problems with it,
yeah,
or work on folks' computers who did have problems, because you were working in that, and you were working Mountain Lion as well, I think.
Yes, I don't think I've had many problems with the OS in general since then, though.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. It's like I get you get away from seeing everybody who has problems with it, and now I'm like, it's I don't have any problems with it. And
I think over the past year or so, I've encountered two different things. One, I think I talked about it, where I am the only account on my computer, and yet they would complain that I had to have administrative privileges to cancel a print job. Strange.
Personal computer?
Yeah.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, ended up finally finding where you could kill it or delete the print job via the command line, and that would take care of it.
Weird. Because I've had to kill some print jobs, in the past few months, and I had, no problem.
And then the other thing that I've noticed is a graphical thing where a lot of times when I'm dragging a file over to a tab, it doesn't do the whole virtual double click on the tab to select it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that one actually annoys me immensely. I haven't researched it because it doesn't happen that often. And then when it does happen, I think, oh, well, I'll research it in a bit. And then I never go back to researching it. And yeah, perpetual cycle.
Yeah, it depends on the level of the level of problem that it poses. Because you say that, I have a problem on my iPhone 15 Pro. don't remember ever seeing this prior to that, but I only see it in one application, and I don't know if the application updated or if it was an OS update, but I see it consistently. And when I look at IMDb, I see a lot of jittering on the display, but I don't see it in any other text views, like on any other application. It's only been IMDb. And it's pretty, like, there's no real steps to reproduce other than, scroll through the, find a movie and scroll through the trivia about the movie, and you'll see it. But, like, I don't see it scrolling the same kind of text views in any other application.
Do you see it if you just use Safari to view the website?
I have not tested that.
I'd be curious if it's like a WebKit specific thing or if it's specific to the build of the app.
I think it's the build of the app, but I don't know.
I mean, it kind of sounds like it, because I don't remember seeing that, but I don't. So I don't use the app. I just, every once in a while, I'll pull up the website if I'm looking for something, but I don't normally scroll through the trivia either. So as far as attempting to reproduce, I wouldn't be doing the same thing specifically.
I think that the other, what was it? There is another issue I've seen, and I've seen some when you're trying to watch a video in Safari. And again, I haven't really, it's not that big a deal. It's not worth even troubleshooting to know where the issue is. But I do see an issue, like if I try to pull up a video, sometimes if I go to full screen quickly or too quickly, I'll have audio and just a black screen, and I won't have any video. And then you just go out and back in, and it's fine. If I wait just a second for the video to start playing before moving in full screen, I haven't been able to reproduce it. It's only when I just, but see, part of this is this is how I was using it on my iPhone 13 Pro and whatever the previous iOS version is. So what's changed is the phone and the version. So, and it's not worth, again, it's not that big of a deal. It'd be more trouble to try to isolate where the issue's coming from. And since it's not my job and it's not a problem, I'm not doing it.
That's like the whole dragging to a tab. Normally, I don't do that anyway. Normally, I have two little windows open because I'm comparing what's in the views. So it's not really an issue. It's just when I notice it, it annoys me because I notice it.
Oh, I have another problem. So there's another thing. It's you have created a shared folder or shared directory on iCloud Drive for the recordings for this podcast. If I click on it, it'll automatically send me maybe if I want to just select it with the mouse arrow, maybe 5 to 10 times I'll have to select it to actually get the right folder, or I can select it and it actually highlights the one above it. Then I push the down arrow and I'm on it. But it doesn't. This is the case on previous versions of macOS, other computers that don't have, they weren't migrated. So just log in. So it's a weird thing like that. And more recently, my iCloud Drive is showing that something is uploading, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to kill it.
I know occasionally I will see where it looks like it's rebuilding the local cache or something, and it'll be stuck in a state where it acts like it's uploading. And I think it's just walking through and comparing the caches and file structures and making sure that everything's there. I don't know. I've seen some odd behaviors there that don't seem to impact performance. But then I quit seeing it finally, 5 or 6 months after it started.
Yeah, so this is not, you said 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, it's okay. One of those things that I don't even remember what I noticed specifically, but I remember thinking it odd because it seemed like it was constantly doing something. And then,
well, it's
eventually I just noticed it wasn't doing it anymore.
I just, from what I see here is like this is just, feedback in Finder, where it shows iCloud Drive, the little circle that shows you the progress. I didn't know you could, you can actually click on it and it will show you what's, uploading one item and how much it is. But it's like if I click on it, it shows me it's uploading one item that's a little over a gigabyte, and I have no idea what it is or where it is. It's been like this for a couple of months, and it doesn't seem to be actually uploading it. Like when I look at like network traffic, it's not it's not actually uploading anything. So
yeah, it sounds identical to what I was seeing. I don't remember if the file size was identical or not, but it was like something that I saw that I noticed, and then eventually I noticed it went away. And I swear it was somewhere in the like half a year time frame.
Yeah. This is sounds like I'm getting ready for that kind of, this might last that long. I have an update. I wonder if I push the update, if I apply the update, if that'll, I don't think it'll fix it actually. But I have the 14.2.1 update that I haven't done.
Actually, don't know if I've done that or not. I'm going to check real quick. 14.2.1.
Should we talk about anything?
I mean, we can. Or
keep doing this.
I figure we just kind of keep doing this at this point. Because it seems like there was another little nitpicky thing that I noticed with relation to like the sharing stuff in iCloud that went away when I added shortcuts to the sidebar. And I don't remember what it was, but I remember I never changed the sidebar in the Finder other than turning off the recent files thing, because who needs that?
Oh man, that's I hear you.
And but I finally went through and added, so for the folders that I actually connect to often that are in iCloud Drive, I added them to the sidebar. And I remember noticing something when I changed or fixed itself or quit bugging me when I did it, and I do not remember anything about what it was now. It might have even been tied to that whole uploading thing, to be honest. But like now I've got a couple of things where I've actually moved all of the storage for a couple of things to my iCloud Drive, which is just reference material for the most part. And then, of course, the episodes and transcripts for the show. And so I just created shortcuts or dropped the folders into the sidebar.
I've got a bunch of stuff. I think I got a bunch of stuff. I'm doing what Apple secretly wants us to all do, and that is upload everything to iCloud. That's
like
what
the documents and downloads and all.
Downloads
or documents and desktop and documents.
Yeah. I've been doing that for a while now, but that's only because I also have a Mac Mini that I have a full copy on. Like it's got the copy downloaded to it. So I do something on my computer. See, that's the part that Apple doesn't tell you that they want you to do. They want you, when you buy a computer from Apple, they want you to buy two computers. They want you to run a headless Mac Mini somewhere. That's why you buy an iMac right now. You buy the base iMac. It's got 256 gigabytes of storage. You buy pretty much any computer from Apple. It's 256 gigs of storage. They want you to buy a headless Mac Mini and attach a external hard drive to it so that you can actually store data. That's their business model. And use iCloud
I can't
Drive
argue with that at all. And especially because they price the storage so astronomically high.
Yeah, you want to get 4 terabytes of internal SSD storage. It doesn't need to be $600.
I actually just bought an external 4 terabyte SSD for $250.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you pay like a small fraction of, and I mean it's just it'd be one thing if they were all in the way Google is with Chrome OS, and it really is. But I get, at the same time, it's like iOS is their most prolific operating system. So they've come the other direction with that for, if you're from the perspective of as an iOS user. But yeah, it's still ridiculously expensive. They could cut their storage prices in half, and everyone would still be like, yeah, that's really expensive.
Yeah, you'd still be paying a premium compared to
yes,
pretty much every competitor.
I mean, You always pay a premium with Apple, and that's part of the that's the point sometimes, because you're getting a premium device, but it's memory and storage is way out of hand right now.
And this has been an argument for a long time, and justifiably so, because those are the two things that you need to be able to adjust over time.
Yes.
Like, you can get away with not adjusting CPU or other aspects a lot longer than you can get away with not being able to adjust allocatable memory.
At this point, with the Apple Silicon, they are making it so that you don't have to replace your computer for at least 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's
if it weren't for storage.
Well, yeah, there's a reason that you also, like, this argument is so nuanced, because you really are paying for a premium product. Like, all the benchmarks suggested, like every teardown suggests that nobody really argues that yes, they are making the best available versions they can. But the storage is really such a, even though it's the best storage you can get as far as speeds and everything else, it's such a problem from a pricing perspective, because everything else about your computer can last you 5 or 6 years.
Right. And on top of that, it used to be that storage and memory were replaceable. Whether they were, whether Apple, at times Apple authorized users to replace storage and memory. And now, not only is it not user replaceable, it is nearly impossible to do.
Yeah, you would think that they would at least offer the ability to add less capable storage just for the sake of being able to offload stuff. But I guess the argument there is that that's what USB-C is for.
Yeah.
Or Thunderbolt.
I mean, that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at this point, they put a what do you call that?
The SD card slot.
They put the SD card slot back in, and that's where you can put in. Because there was somebody that was making an SD card that was that had the aluminum edge, and it sat flush to your MacBook Pro.
I remember seeing those at one point. I remember at the time thinking, who would need it, and then now I would so insanely benefit from it.
Well, our good friend from our work colleague that was, what did he start out? He had an Android and a significant Linux enthusiast, turned Apple. I don't know if he's an Apple enthusiast, but he's certainly a fan of Mac and iOS. He had one.
Yeah. I know for a little while I had just a USB SSD that it wasn't flush mount, but it's small enough that I could remain in the port. So just a little plastic piece jutted out the side. But it was rounded so that it wouldn't catch on anything. It was designed to be left in a port.
Nice. That's nice. I was going to say, at this point, I'm not doing the things that I need that kind of storage, but I have been messing around with Xcode and GitHub and just seeing if there's things for me that I want to do there.
At some point, I need to rekindle a couple of projects I had there, but I think I have enough going on.
Yeah.
I have to pick and choose a little bit at the moment.
Yeah. I'm sticking my feet in the water there. I had an idea. I haven't even started on anything. I just was, starting to set things up. Probably something that I should be able to do in an hour or two is going to take me much, much, much longer.
Yeah, it's something I actually probably ought to do, is set up a proper private Git repo for my stuff instead of doing the local repositories.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Set up. Well, I was going to say, you set up an account. As I understand it, you set up your account with Git, and then you can set up multiple repos. Like, you can have a repo for each project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have an account, and I have one repo that's up there privately for some of the Ansible stuff that I'd put together for me.
You shared something with me at some point
Yeah.
in time.
That was the Ansible stuff.
Okay.
That project. It might have even been, there might be a second one sitting up there too. I'd have to go back and look. It's been a while since I've done anything with it. But I know for sure the stuff that I had done related to some proof of concept stuff using Ansible to do some like auditing and basic network mapping and diagramming, or pseudo diagramming, because it wasn't really diagramming. But that I'll digress. But there was some neat stuff that I'd played with that I remember sharing.
I'm sitting around and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I can see, and I don't know how to do stuff, but I can see it. I'm like, I just need to go over. I don't even know how big the hump is. It's not gonna be that big, but I just need to get over the hump before I'm like, oh, here we go, I'm doing it. And there's a number of things that are like that, and it's just a matter of getting over that hump. But I started setting things up in GitHub to do that, because I can remember, like, with work, like, oh, I don't understand this, and it was over time of just doing it over and over and over again, and just immersing myself in it because it was my job. Then I was like, oh, okay, that's why this is the way that it is, and just figuring it out. Well, not just it was mostly like working on a thing, reading documentation, asking people things, working on it some more, making connections, saying, hey, is this looks like it's connected this way, and somebody, yes, you confirming that what I observed is actually how it is, and so forth. Not having a paycheck is makes it less of a motivator.
Yeah, understandable. The easy way to think of it, though, is for most uses, what you know about what was used at work as a repository translates to Git.
Yeah. Like, I think, like, I have been in Git before. It's I think once I have everything set up and I start using it, I think it'll be easy. I think it's just like, I'll just need to be like, okay, in Git, you do, this is the command for this same thing. Like, I think that'll be no problem. I think that's like an unnoticeable speed bump. It's actually setting it up and getting it to work consistently and correctly the way that I want it to every time. That's where I'm like, as soon as I hit the slightest amount of resistance, I was like, I'll work on this later.
Yeah, I follow that.
And I do. Like, I have been. It's like, I didn't work on it yesterday, but like all last week, I was working, I was like, I'd work on it for half an hour, resistance, and then go do something else, and then go back to it, and so forth. So I didn't yesterday because I was in bed.
It's kind of funny. I don't work quite the same way. What I'll do is I'll encounter resistance, and I'll work until I fix that problem or figure it out or understand it. But then I won't go back to it for, days, weeks, months, just depending.
I'll work like that from time to time, but mostly it's like, as soon as I hit resistance, I was like, I'll work on it a little bit longer. And if I don't feel like I don't have any traction on that problem, I'll stop and be like, you know what, I'll work on this later. So that, because I feel like I'm, even though I'm walking away and not giving it any direct attention or focus, I'll come back to it and be like, oh, that's what the problem was. And it'll be like easy fix.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I do that sometimes too.
Just fresh eyes seem to be.
Most of the time, I would say I've resolved whatever the hurdle I find at the time. But a lot of times it'll be something that I'll encounter in the resistance, and it's late, or I've been working on it for a little bit already, and then I'll do the other where I'll just come back to it.
Yeah. So sometimes when I when I leave it, and I'll work on something else that's related to it, but.
Well, I think it's also probably a large part of it is just recognizing when you're in a mental state to proceed versus when you're in a mental state to say, I'm going to be better doing this later.
One of the things, so I got this, I learned that it took me until college, and it wasn't even the beginning of college. I think it was like halfway through college. No, it was like, sophomore year. I realized, you know what? When I take a test, I was like, I don't have to answer these in the order that they're listed on the test. And so I guess especially because, that was back in the day, in the old days where they had written tests. But, I remember looking at chemistry tests and I'd read a question, and if I knew the answer, I'd answer it. And if I didn't know the answer right away, like off the top of my head, or how to, start it, I would just move on to the next thing. Or I'd start a question, there'd be questions like, oh, I can start this. And I'd start it. And as soon as I had any amount of resistance, I'd move on to the next question. And it was just like, I got to where that was the best way for me to take tests. I had the most success taking tests in that way. Because I just bounce around, because like sometimes there's a question that there's a question over, question 10 jogged my memory to answer question 3.
Well, and on top of that, depending on the way or the subject matter and everything else, it's highly likely that at least one question is answered by another question.
Yes. Yeah. So I keep trying to tell my children how to take tests like that, but I'm not sure if they're... I saw a meme. It's a guy standing, and it's obviously windy, and he's trying to pour tea from a pot to a teacup, and the wind is just blowing all that. The teapot is clear, the teacup is clear, so you can see how much liquid is going in, and it's 0. The wind is blowing it all past the teacup, and it's like, and the caption was like, "Trying to give your teenage child advice." I was like, I remember that. I remember being that teenage teacup.
Well, and the other thing is there's also awareness now of how everybody correlates and learns and understands things a little bit differently.
Yeah,
with more variance than what we used to give it credit for.
Yeah, we now call that the strange things that people do.
Yeah.
Do you sit? Do you sit on the toilet seat, or do you hover?
But I've noticed, and even not even getting to the teenage years, obviously yet, but
yeah,
I've noticed I a lot of times need to just change the way I'm describing something, or adapt it in a way that makes it make sense that I don't know that I would have had the understanding to do, a decade ago or 20 years ago.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work, or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.